Welcome to Saroma Shorts. Today we're going to talk about purchasing your first dental practice.
So there are two elements to the application for the banks. One is the business itself, and the other is the applicant and their personal finances.
The first part that you need to look at is your CV. Obviously, you're going to have a lot of stuff in there in terms of the clinical work that you do, but lenders will want to look at, what management experience you have in place. Do you understand CQC? Have you been part of that in terms of staff management? So that's something you need to work into your CV as part of your credit application.
Then moving on to your bank statements, the banks like to see nice, clean bank statements. And by that, we mean no unpaid items or excesses, breaching overdrafts, etc. And I always advise clients that they should run their statements well for 6 months prior to any application.
And that follows nicely into sort of personal debt. Banks will understand that you have, personal borrowing, but if you've maxed out your credit cards or you're possibly struggling with large loan repayments, that will have a factor in terms of, can they lend you the money?
And finally, deposits. The banks are very generous with their unsecured lending on dental practices, but they do like people to have some kind of background assets. If you don't have a property, they're looking for cash. But also you need to have deposits for not just for your deposit on the practice itself, but also to cover legal fees and other professional advisors. So the best advice is get starting straight away, long before you find an actual practice. So prior to finding a practice, you may wish to contact us so that we can review your personal information and feed back to you on exactly how you would look as a candidate for finance to the banks. So when purchasing a practice, it's really important to understand the practice financials. Dan, as an ex-banker, how do the bank look at the financials?
Well, when a lender's looking at the financials, they go past just the turnover of the business. Obviously, they're looking at the profit, and sometimes there could be a negative profit on the business, but that's probably not showing the true picture of the practice. Really, what you'd be looking at is what you can add back in, because there could be associate costs that the incoming principal could remove. There could be some depreciation costs that they won't have going forward, and maybe some loan costs or loan interest within that they won't have going forward as well. So it's really about reworking those figures to get to what the true profits are of the business. And that's what they're going to use to work out the loan serviceability. So it's really important to obviously work with people who understand the financials. So before it's presented to the bank, the correct figures can be added back in and the practice can be presented in the correct way to hopefully get the loan that you need for the purchase.
Many of our clients refer financial accounts for target practice through to us so that we can overview them and provide feedback on how serviceable a potential loan would be.
For a first-time buyer, what's the maximum loan to value that they can expect on a dental practice?
So the banks are actually very generous for first-time buyers. On a freehold or long lease, they will offer 100% finance, and on goodwill, 90%. Obviously, all that is subject to the target practice being able to service the debt. So what type of practice should a first-time buyer be seeking?
Keep your options open, really. I suppose don't go into a purchase with a preconceived, agenda and what you actually want, because we've had clients in the past who, I want an NHS contract and end up buying a private practice and vice versa. So keep your options open. Each one has, benefits. NHS contracts, you've got a good income that's coming in each month, but you could possibly get to a point where, fulfilling that contract is quite difficult. And then on the private side, you've got the opportunity to, add additional services and generate higher fees. So as I say, look at what sort of suits you best, but don't have a preconceived agenda. Look at what practice fits with you best, really. What term can clients expect on their dental loan?
So the traditional split was 15 years on unsecured goodwill loans and 25 years on property. That said, there's some slight variations. There are some banks out there that will do up to 20 years on goodwill only loans, and others that will offer a blended loan of both the property and the goodwill, 90% over 25 years.
So if you're thinking of purchasing your first dental practice and need some assistance, we can help you at every stage. Please reach out to us for a free consultation and we'd be more than happy to help. Our contact details will flash up at the end of this video.